them. We're on Facebook, we're on Roku, we're on Rumble, and we're on YouTube. We are excited. We have our sponsor with us tonight. Hi, Carnation. We want to thank you guys for taking our networks up, and we love you for that. Thank you. Mwah. All right. I'm going to hand it straight over to Preston. You'll notice that our guest is already sitting here waiting because I'll let Preston tell you why.
You didn't tell me why, Dolly.
I think you know. Go ahead.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Episode 95. Can you believe it? Almost 100 episodes. Episode 95 of The Lightgate. I'm your host, Preston Dennett. My lovely co-host is Dolly Safran, lifelong contactee, subject of my book, Symmetry. We're working on a sequel, just starting to write it right now. It's very cool. It's going to be some amazing revelations in that one. I want to say a quick hello to all you guys in chat. As I always say on Monday, it's because of you. We do this show. It's because of you guys that Monday is that much brighter for both Dolly and me, and hopefully our guest. And of course, we just love all of you. So I'm going to go real quick here because our guest tonight, Dr. J, is a big friend of mine. We used to live practically right next door. And interesting story as to how we met each other. We'll probably start with that. But let me just say a quick hello to you folks. It's always so nice to see these familiar names here. Hi, Teresa. Thanks for joining us. We got Scuba Maru. We have Louise from New Jersey, I think, the drone territory. We have Owlman. Happy Monday. We got Tim Houston all the way from Australia, the land down under. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Namaste. We couldn't do this without you. We've come to depend on you. We love you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Your endless and wondrous generosity does not go unnoticed. We truly appreciate you. Just want to let you know that you are amazing. We have OGG, apparently from the UK.
Hello.
Elaine. All right.
Cool.
Yes, Louise, I see your question. I put a star next to it. It's a good one, considering what happened today. Oh, happy belated Valentine's Day, by the way, everyone.
Yeah. Happy Valentine's Day.
Sending out the love. We got Gizmo. We have Jay Kirshenman from Virginia.
Hello.
We have Michael. Hi, Michael. Hope you're doing well.
Send hugs to Kaylee. I love you both.
Okay, we have Central Wisconsin. We have Olivia. So many familiar names. You guys, I love you so much for sticking around for our show. Hi, Catherine. Four Feathers. Thank you for joining us. Sunny Burnett. Dr. J is also in the chat.
Hey.
Awesome. Feel free to bring up a check-in or a question or anything if you see it, Dr. J. Or,
yeah, I got it ready.
I think you might have that ability.
Yes, he does. Yep.
Okay, let me see it. Chris, hello. Flea Market Gold. Raul, also a person of endless generosity. Raul, we love you. Thank you so much. You guys, this helps us a lot. Really does. Burnt Toast, all the way from Scotland.
Scotland.
Yes, very cool.
Ooh,
we have Brian W. We have Rebecca. Welcome to Fifth Dimension. FL. J.R. Amadeus Schiffer.
Hey.
Saying hello to all three of us. Becky Sloan made it. Happy to see you too. We got Michael. We got Wayne. We got Rockstar. We got Technochronic. Very cool. Groucho Trout.
Nice.
Thank you for joining us. Brenda Whelan and Helen Nyborg and Valerian the Mac.
Yeah,
hey, nice crowd today already, so I really better get started very soon here, I promise, Dolly. Just a few more. Ruben, all the way from Queens, New York. Been there. I really actually enjoyed New York. We have John P. Adventures and Jay Truthshaker and Brenda Whelan. Hello, all. My birthday is today. Happy birthday. Congratulations on making another solar revolution.
I
love that term. Okay, we have Andrew from Manchester staying up late from the UK. Thank you. Alexander G. Good to see you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you,
so
Alexander.
much. That's very, very generous of you. You are amazing. Okay, I think that's just, Catmaster Trash is here.
A lot of cool.
We have William McDonald. Oh, very cool.
Very nice.
All right, I think that's enough. There might be a few more of you. I hope I didn't forget. One more. Spike from the UK, 1:15 a.m. And Mr. 195000519. Love you too.
Very cool. I like that.
I'm going to get started now. And I put together John's bio because apparently I didn't see the one you sent me. So hope this one is okay.
It's good.
All right. Dr. J, a.k.a. John Elias, or John Elias, a.k.a. Dr. J. I think it works both ways.
Yes.
Has been active in the field for more than 20 years. I was trying to think of the exact date, but you can tell us. He is an experiencer to some degree of some paranormal stuff, a researcher, absolutely, a skydiver. I had to stick that in there because that takes courage. And the host of the popular radio show, Dr. J Radio Live, where he has interviewed many of the leading figures in the field. And I'm going to do some name dropping here because I'm not sure Dr. J will. But man, oh man, these are some very high-profile figures, such as Edgar Mitchell, Jesse Marcel Jr. Oh, I want to talk about that because that one's really poignant and profound. George Tsoukalos of Ancient Aliens, Linda Moulton Howe, she's huge in this field. Peter Robbins, Neil deGrasse Tyson. I want to hear about that one, Dr. J. Eric Von Daniken. Wow. I don't even know how you got him. Grant Cameron, Nancy Dutetri, Stanton Friedman, the true pioneer in this field. Graham Hancock, he's huge.
Yeah.
Michio Kaku, I pronounced that right. He's amazing. Chris Bledsoe. I mean, this is just a tiny list of the people Dr. J has had the privilege to interview, which because of this, he's become really knowledgeable in this field. The depth and breadth of the people he's talked to and the knowledge he has is amazing. So we're definitely going to be talking about that. But John, Dr. J, you know I'm a huge friend, a huge fan. Yeah. Such an honor. This is kind of a exclusive scoop. So thanks for joining us.
Oh, absolutely. It's an honor, especially because you are such a big part of the reason why I became so active in this. It wasn't meant to happen. Apparently, it was fate that brought me into this.
Yeah. Well, let's start with that because how about we start a little bit earlier?
Yeah. Okay.
You're growing up, did you believe in UFOs?
Absolutely. I don't know why. I just knew there was no way we were alone. And remember, I'm Greek, so I heard about the Greek gods. I didn't think everything is mythology. If you're going to write something for the first time in civilization, are you really going to write a fake story or a novel? No, you're going to write history. So although my entire family was saying, oh, it's just, mythology, I knew there was something there. Fast forward a couple of years, I was probably about 4, and I ended up seeing that very famous Jesse Marcel Sr. interview with Stan Friedman done in the 70s, where they talked about the wreckage, how they couldn't burn it, how they, the memory metal, all that. That was just wow, like it completely enthralled. Go a little bit forward another year or two, 85, 86. My father had a restaurant at the time in West Covina, and it was on the corner of a strip mall. And I had walked to the back of the strip mall because there was a Salvation Army. And so I was very young. My brother was even younger, and he had his little friend with him. And we went there to check out the toys, whatever they brought in. As we're coming out, I literally, in kids' terms, I described it as like a metal cereal bowl because the kind of cereal bowls I had were not just a bowl. They were more like what you would normally see, a hump-shaped saucer, but it was upside down. And I remember there was a guy that was on his bike, and he had the helmet, the really tight bike shorts that you could just think of in the 80s, like 10-gear bike, whatever. And I said, Mister, what's that? And he just blew it off and said, it's a weather balloon. I said, no, look at it again. He got so enthralled in what he was looking at as he got off his bike fell over. And I remember that because he didn't even look at his bike. His eyes were just glued to that. I ran inside the restaurant to go get my mother to bring her out. And it was a weekend, a Saturday or Sunday. I believe it was a Sunday where it was the most busy for breakfast. And by the time she finished with the customer and came out, it was gone. But you could see in my vicinity at least 30 to 40 people that had seen it. you saw cars pulled on the side of the road, people standing out, pointing upward. So that was a huge deal. Now, go a couple years later, and this is just, I swear, pure fake. Do you remember when we were younger and doing art in art school in class, right? And they'd put newspapers on our table. The newspaper that happened to be on my table, if it wasn't LA Times, it was Daily News. It was one of those. And anyone could find the article because it's now a very famous case. It was called, like, I think, the Voyeurish landing. You know what I'm talking about? The 1989 landing in the Soviet Union.
Right.
You had a craft land, multiple beings come out. One looked like a robot. Someone was shot with like a glass-like tube and then was like frozen or something before the thing took off. And it was seen by dozens, if not well over 100 people in the park. And I remember nobody believed me, even though I had the newspaper article.
Yeah, there were landing traces and everything. What was the name of that? It starts with a V. I forget.
Voyanovich something, but it's definitely with the V. Now, go 1 year later to 1990, and I happened to be in Greece on a family trip. And we were going through one village to another in the middle of the night, where literally it's through a forest. There is no light. All you see is the moon, the stars, and the headlights. I mean, like, and then trees. It's kind of like a place you would expect to see a Bigfoot or something, or just something freaky. And out of, because I'm in the back seat, my brother's in the back on the middle, my mother is on the back on the passenger side, my father's in the passenger of the front seat, and then the taxi cab driver is in the front driver's seat. And I'm the first one to notice it, and it's a big ball, and it was being chased by 10 to 12 smaller balls. It was going too slow to be like a meteor or anything, but at the same time too fast to, I guess, be like a helicopter. I guess it could have been, but how could it be a helicopter when it has no sound? And it was pretty low. We get to the next village, it's late, it's like 2 a.m, we get to sleep. When we woke up, that thing was all over the media for the next 3 days. And because at the time there was the Soviet Union and the United States, NASA was asked, the Soviet Space Agency was asked, there was no re-entries going on, no launches taken on. So that was probably the second big sighting that I had. And then after that was, things probably didn't happen for another 17 years. Well, first I was working at my dad's restaurant. And instead of getting an allowance, I would get $10 a day to seat people and bring them water, their menus and all that. I found, especially when you're 5, 6, 7, up to 12, And I found a classified ad from a MUFON guy, and he was selling bootleg copies of VHS tapes. And there were anything from a UFO documentary like Above Top Secret, Timothy Good, John Lear was in it, all these people, to George Knapp's documentary of the early 90s. I mean, it had everything. Every week I'd go visit him. I even got like every episode of Unsolved Mysteries or Strange Universe, Paranormal Universe, all of those that had something to do with UFOs. So I was like really obsessed with this, but I could never understand why. Now, I only knew about 2 crashes at the time, literally all through my teens and into my 20s. And they were Kecksburg and they were Roswell. Now, it was the 60th anniversary of Roswell. So we're talking July 2007. I'm watching History Channel and I see Roswell. And I see Canada's Roswell. I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't know something happened in Canada, Shag Harbor. Then there was the Aurora, the Texas Roswell, 1896. I'm like, you're telling me they buried a body with a craft? Like, How come I didn't know this? They talk about Britain's Roswell, which was Rendlesham. And then they even talked about Mexico's Roswell, which was technically, it crashed on their side of the border, but we retrieved it from, our
Chihuahua, was it, I think?
Yeah,
Chihuahua?
Yeah, I believe that was it. Yeah. And I was so blown away. I lived across the street from the Grove at the time in the city, exactly where that is. So I walked across the street to Barnes & Noble and said, I want a UFO book. And I got the book and I was so disappointed. It was a book that was written by an astronomer. Oh, well, this is the galactic speed limit. It's the speed of light. Well, if they have to get here, they have to be self-replicating robots. There will never be anything alive. Just basic BS. I'm like, I'm way past that. I know something's visiting us. So I went back kind of upset. I obviously couldn't exchange it because I bought it. It's a book. I'm like, dude, don't you guys have anything else? Because when you brought me to the UFO section, this is the only one you had. Guys, like, actually, come to the ghost section. In some reason, in the ghost section was this book. Can you see it? Oh, please
No,
tell
put
me.
it in front of your face. There. No. There
There
we
you
go.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Written book by Preston Dennett. I read it cover to cover the first day. I reread it that same night. I was so blown away. I couldn't believe how many crashes there were or how many contacts. At the end of the book, it says if you'd like to ask the author any questions or contact them, email. And I emailed you just telling you how blown away I was about your book. And again, this is, we're talking July 2007. When you responded, your area code of your phone number was the same as mine. I'm like, oh, that is so cool. And then we ended up meeting, and then the rest is history.
Yep. I'll never forget it going over to your family's restaurant.
Yeah.
You're
And,
like,
and
"Deal's on
unfortunately,
us."
I just got into a bad accident from the first time I spoke to you until the time I met you in person. So you had to see me with all these bandages on.
Yeah.
It was just bad luck. But yeah, that's the time of our friendship, the beginning of it.
Yeah, that was very cool because I don't often meet people who have that kind of interest in the subject.
Oh,
And
yeah.
from that point on, we pretty much became good friends.
Yep.
And you'd
Yep.
come over pretty regularly, and it was so awesome to see you really start. Like, I remember you're like, I want to become active in this field. I'm like, you should.
Yes.
And how did you manage to go from
Okay,
reading to?
that is a total chance. So I'm still in law school. Then I finish. I graduate December of 2010, and then unfortunately, because of the car accident, I had dozens of surgeries. So I spent the next year having a couple more. Now it's 2012, and I was supposed to be taking the summer bar. But all of a sudden, I've already been watching Third Phase Moon for about a year. So about 2011, I started watching them. And for everybody out there, if you don't already know them, they are the original UFO YouTube channel. They were posting stuff professionally long before anyone else was. Yeah, now there's a channel or two that have more subscribers, but as far as content, I think there's no other that's as old or as much as content. Anyway, one of them said that they interviewed a guy who was like a UFO summoner. And I remember seeing on the news this guy from the mid 2000s called Prophet Yahweh, a black guy from Nevada, if you probably remember him. He would be on the media. He would say a few words, look up in the sky, and then an orb would appear. Well, that's what this guy was doing. His name was Robert Bingham.
Yeah.
So they posted the next event, and I said, okay, look, I'll go if nothing happens. I got my books for the bar exam. I'll start studying, and okay, I won't be lost faith. Well, sure enough, something happened. What I actually filmed that day actually is what's on Third Phase Moon, because even though they sent the cameraman for himself, he couldn't see the UFO, so he filmed all of us looking at it, and it was my iPhone that actually caught these orbs that out of nowhere, because I brought you there at least once. You came with your brother, your
My
sister-in-law.
sister-in-law,
Yeah. And I remember it didn't make sense. There's no one releasing balloons. There's nothing in the sky. And out of nowhere, these like silver bright things or white things appear like 50, 80,000 feet in the sky. Just made no sense. And to this guy is still, I think he's a starseed of some sort. And because it was Third Phase of the Moon, I assumed they were here in LA since they were promoting an LA event. It wasn't until the cameraman told me they're in Hawaii. And then because I'd captured footage, he put me in touch with them. And I swear to God, I was a fan of them for over a year. It's like I manifested to become in this field because then I get, hired by them. Then I start looking for interviews with them. And even though in the beginning, the interviews were done with Blake Cousins on Skype and then they were posted on YouTube, I was the one who did all the questions. I wrote them. I didn't care that I wasn't on camera. It was just my dream to ask questions and finally get answers to people I've watched for the longest time. And I'll tell you, actually, just before that May 2012 event that really gave me, like, I had to be more involved. I went to Conscious Life Expo, paid the full price. I mean, mind you, I didn't know anyone at this point. I went alone. And so I remember I paid for Travis Walton's workshop, whatever it was, $25 extra on top of your ticket. And then at the end, after he finishes, I go up to ask a question, a very logical question. And that Dolly would absolutely say, yes, it's logical. I say, Travis, you were abducted. Most abductees have been taken more than once. Have you ever been abducted again? You know what his answer was?
Yes.
One word, no.
No. Wow.
I was like, I waited in line for 15 minutes to hear a story that is I've already known for decades and it's nothing new. And then the only question I ask is one answer, no, and then I have to get back in line and ask another. Chance encounter, I ended up meeting Yvonne Smith, Roger Lear, and
Just to interrupt, I think he has since changed his mind about that. He has.
You know what? I have to re-ask him again. Because I found out one of the people on the crew has been a regular contact even before the Travis encounter.
Right.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that was completely new to me when he told me that. So I have to ask Travis about that. But I was disappointed, 13 years ago when I heard that. But outside, I asked Roger Lear, I said, hey, I used to produce raves and concerts and clubs. I don't know what I want to do yet. I just finished law school, but I'd like to be involved somehow in UFOs. Can I get your number? And he reached in his pocket. He's like, I'm all out of cards. Well, as fate would have it, as he walked away, the table he was at had his card. He must have given it to someone who left it. And of course, I picked it up and I contacted everyone. At the time, Stan Romanek was a huge person. Linda Moulton Howe. Everybody said no. But when Roger Lear finally said yes, then I would go back to Stanton Friedman. I'm like, I know you said no, but we just interviewed, Roger Lear. Will you do it now? And everything started to turn yes. And before you know it, you became my co-host, and we started Third Phase of Moon Radio on Revolution Radio.
Yeah, that was fun.
I have something to bring up to you. I never thought I'd say this out loud, but I'm going to. In 2003, this was before I decided to come out, okay? Mm-hmm. And I was going through MUFON files looking for my first report, which was way back in the 70s, okay? And it disappeared. So I put it back in. It disappeared again, okay? And I got really frustrated. And I thought, what am I going to do if nobody will listen to me? So this is not a bad reflection I'm about to tell you. It's just, it's just the way it went. Third Phase of Moon was on Blog Talk Radio back then.
Yeah, I was on their show a lot, if you remember that.
Yes. And yes, I remember you actually. And when Preston told me you were friends, it ruined my brain. I called the show one night and I actually talked to them and I told them my 1973 encounter. Okay. And they played it for a long time. Okay. And I thought, well, they'll either contact me again because they're more interested in everything else or whatever. I just thought I just put it out there just to see how they'd react to it, literally. And it faded into the woodwork. Okay. And I thought, okay, well, and then I decided they're not really as much researchers as they are like the news people, up to the moment, this is what's going on right now kind of guys. So I just left it alone after that. But I've always watched them and I have seen you on their show. And
I still appear on there. I was actually just on their show a couple of days ago.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm their in-house expert. So
that's what I was going to allude to. You are their in-house expert. That's right. That's what I was saying too.
What's amazing to the whole story you just said is this is something I see so often in this field. There's a level of guidance going on. To have that card left on the table when you're looking for it.
I mean, totally. I swear, I manifested to work for them. I literally, when I first saw their channel, I'm like, man, they look professional. The way Blake is walking with the sound, it looks like Robert Stack from Unsolved Mysteries. At the time, there was no professional YouTube channel covering UFOs as far as news. And I've been with them. I know a lot of people say they create hoaxes. They do not create anything. They only receive footage and they put it out for you to decide. If it looks too shady, they're not going to put it. But in the early days, when there was only a few submissions, they would put them all out there. And of course, obviously, some are fake. And when they find out something is fake, they'll come out and say it. But I got to say, there are times that I saw something, I thought was real, and then I found out it was fake. It just crushed me because I felt violated. I still feel violated when I see something fake because you guys know this. YouTube doesn't pay squawk. And it's worse now than it was, say, 10, 15 years ago.
I can tell you one. I can tell you one they put up that is absolutely real. I'm gonna bring this one up too. Long time ago, way back when. It's a huge B-52 bomber getting ready to pull out, and it's got a circular craft above it. It is not ET. It is us made, and it was
ARV, alien reproduction vehicle.
Yeah, it was above it, and it took off with it above it. I hate to tell you this, but I actually saw that in real life incoming into a base that I was working on. And when I saw that on tape, I thought, who the hell got that?
Did you submit that to them by any chance?
No, because I was too busy getting ready to come out, and ET was like putting pressure on me not to say any more to anybody until I was going to just flush it, come out.
Gotcha.
And so that's when I found Preston. Because they told me about him, okay? Made me write his name down. And I did what you did. I emailed.
Wait, the ET's you're saying told you?
Yes. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. He is the gatekeeper. He is hands down of all the people I've ever interviewed and talked to, hands down one of my greatest friends, and still to this day the number one researcher.
I agree with you.
Your sound is a little low. Is it possible you can turn up your sound just a little bit?
Is that better right now?
It sounds like it's not coming from your mic, but your computer. In other words, I don't think your mic.
Not good. Let me check a setting here real quick.
We're getting a few comments in chat, which it's not a big deal because we can hear you just fine.
But I think I know what to do. Hang on a second. Let's try.
It's better.
Way better. Yes.
100%.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, it was that new external webcam I just bought for the show and plugged in because the one that should have been working is on this new computer and it doesn't. So, like I said, this is my first time on camera in almost 3 years.
and someone else mentioned it earlier. So thanks you guys for.
We love y'all. Thank you. Yeah. So that's so totally cool, though, Yeah. Preston used to talk to me about being friends with you after I met him. Okay. And he was saying that he respected the fact that you were working so diligently and just putting yourself out there. And when you started describing how you were just contacting people over and over and over, I thought, well, that's why you didn't leave well enough alone. You just kept going for it.
I did. And no matter how many no's I got, I went to the next person. And I got to tell you, some of the people you mentioned, they took a long time. And I'm not ashamed to say this, but did you know Michio Kaku and Graham Hancock took 10 freaking years to interview? I started interviewing them, reaching out to them in 2012. And then occasionally I'd get a response. Occasionally I wouldn't. And it was always like, no, not right now. I don't know enough about you. And then finally, both of them in 2022 were like, yeah, okay, we could do it now. But you got to be persistent is the thing. Not to the point that you annoy them. So if they said no, I'd wait like 6 months. But they were always in my hand like, okay, I got to go back to them. So,
Well, congratulations on that because that is amazing that you've been able to do that. Yeah. Not many people, have been able to interview a lot of these folks.
That's why Art Bell hired me, actually. I don't know if people know that I worked for him. So he was supposed to come back July 2015, and I was on Revolution Radio, but had a second show on Dark Matter Digital Network. At the time, it was just called Dark Matter Radio, but when Art came on, he wanted to call it Art Matter Digital Network because it wasn't a terrestrial. And apparently he'd heard some of my shows and saw the guests. And so he cold called me and said, do you know who this is? And I said, no, because I've never heard him. Honestly, I read about him because I've been subscribing to UFO magazine since like 95, 96. And I remember the article that I read was the John Lear call into the Art Bell show at Coast to Coast, where he described how a presidential UFO disclosure would go. So I knew the name. So when he called me and says, do you know what this is? I said, no. You could tell there was like a bummer in his voice because, he thought I was a fan. I'm like, oh, hi. I'm like, what's up? And he asked me, me and you have the same guests, the same caliber of guests from Edgar Mitchell, all the ones you mentioned. And I said, yeah, like I'm wondering what he's getting at. And he goes, do you want to produce my show? And I said, no, not really. To tell you the truth, the only reason I'm doing my show is part selfish, part because I want to ask the questions I've always wanted to ask. And every time I ask a question, 10 more pop up, 10 more, as you know, because you both know.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and he was like, well, what if your show was on before me and you could still keep it? I said, so nothing would change? He goes, the only thing I asked for you is if me and you both want a guest, like Linda Moulton Howe was the name, he said, I want first priority, and then you have to wait 2 weeks for her to book her for a year. I said, no problem. I said, that's all I have to do. So that's why I took that job. So I hate when people try to say, oh, I only came up because of him. No, I was only hired because I was already established.
He reached
right.
out to you. It took me 10 years to get on Coast to Coast, by the way.
I still haven't been on there. Oh, I have a story on there that's not even worth talking about. That they're just complete liars to me. You want me to tell you real quick?
Sure. I'd love to hear.
So 2013, I think it was 2013, maybe 2014, John B. Wells just got fired or quit. So there was a spot open. And in college, I had worked for an FM station, for the local one. And it was KJR 310. I don't remember. 10, it's not 102.7, whatever. It's something in Santa Barbara. 104 point, whatever. The point is KJR or KJEE, something like that. And I called and I spoke to Tom. What's his last name? I know who, come on, Tom. He's the manager. He manages George Norrie, Danheiser, Tom Danheiser. And I said, hey, I heard you guys have an opening. I'd like to apply to be a host. And he goes, have you had any radio experience? And I said, yeah. And I mentioned how long I worked for the radio station. I was part of the morning show and all that. And I said, I'm also on Revolution Radio because this is before Dark Matter. And he goes, well, is your show syndicated or your the network that you're the radio station? That I didn't quite know the lingo at the time. And I said, well, we do carry Loveline if that counts. And he goes, no, that's not syndicated. And he tried to shoot me down and be like, you better learn the lingo first. Then I remembered that when I spoke to him in person, that he had actually been a regular at my family's restaurant. And when I said, okay, well, sorry, I called, but maybe sometime I'll run into yours. Oh, I remember you now. He goes, make sure next time you learn the lingo, but I'm sorry, I can't hire you straight from internet radio. Do you know who gets the job a couple weeks later?
I'm afraid to ask.
Jimmy Church. What radio experience did he have? Internet radio, less than me. So they lied to me and saying I couldn't get it because I wasn't on a syndicated show, and they wouldn't take internet shows. But 4 weeks later, he's on there because of that. So I was very disappointed with Tom Danheiser and Coast to Coast.
Yeah. So I remember when we hosted the show. I don't know how long I was on there. It was maybe a year or less.
It was less because remember, it didn't take long. Normally, you're supposed to be on a 6 months probation, and there was a listener vote that we didn't even know about that voted us into prime time. And unfortunately, that conflicted with your work. So you would miss the beginning of the show and have to come near the end. And then I guess just got harder on you. So by the end of the year, you couldn't do it if we were going to do it at that time.
Yeah, I was disappointed, but it's a lot of work too. I mean,
it definitely was. It's not like we were getting paid, it's not like YouTube where we're getting super chats or anything. We were doing it because we loved it,
Yeah. Well, I do remember one interview that was really touching though with Dr. Jesse Marcel Jr.
Yes.
Because that turned out to be his last interview.
Yeah, he died literally a few weeks later, and I hate to say it, I don't want to be called the Black Widow, but there are at least 10 people that have died after being interviewed by me. I'm not saying immediately. Some were like 6 months, some were 3 months, but there's a lot of RIP final interviews on my channel. Jesse Marcel Jr., Michael Aquino, Stanton Friedman, Edgar Mitchell, and the list just goes on and on.
Michael Cremo, you got to talk to him. Wow.
He's still alive, right? Because I just got something, in the email a couple of weeks ago from his management. So I hope it's not like saying he passed away. I didn't read it yet. So, but yeah, I've definitely spoken to Michael Cremo a few times. He's a great guy.
Yeah, the interview with Jesse Marcel was, I don't know, such an honor for me.
Yeah,
Because-
yeah, and it was. I expected to do more with you and him, but we didn't expect him to pass away during the Roswell Festival.
Yeah, very, very sad. But
He was at the festival. And
Well,
that's
I guess he just finished and just came home. I believe he actually
Oh my
passed away
God.
when he returned to Montana. But we're literally like, because we interviewed him in June before he went to that festival, and
Wow.
then we're supposed to do something back when he comes back, and then unfortunately he passed
all
away.
right, now I have to ask this: Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes,
He's
yes.
kind of on my naughty list a little bit.
What? Repeat that thing. He's kind
He's
of
kind of on my naughty list. Some of the things he said about UFOs.
Yeah, and he's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
I don't understand why he likes to make some of his politics with his science, because that doesn't that doesn't work very well. But yeah, I don't know why he's just denying, because see, Michio Kaku in the olden days would not touch it on the
Right.
10-foot pole. But then I consider the first kind of disclosure, maybe all we're going to get, is the New York Times 2017 article, which showed us the Tic Tac, the gimbal, and the Go Fast
Ralph
videos.
Blumenthal, I think, was the one who wrote that.
Which one? I think it was
Ralph Blumenthal, Leslie Keane.
Leslie Keane was definitely a part of the article.
Yeah.
So after that, Michio completely changed and started talking about it. And when I interviewed him in 2022, and when I mentioned those, he actually said he believes they're extraterrestrial drones. And I was like, you actually just said that, like finally defending UFOs for once. And I thought that was great. But no, Neil deGrasse Tyson, I started asking about Alcubierre warp drives, which are the gravity distortion that surrounds these craft. And he just kind of started deflecting it. You could kind of see.
Yeah. I like this guy.
He's got to know.
Yeah,
I like Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's extremely intelligent, and he's
very much so. Very much so. Like I said,
No.
very nice too.
Yes.
Like when you talk to him,
I will
very
tell you that
cordial.
there's certain things about him that he is absolutely not going to disclose to anybody. He's sitting on a mine. Okay, that's what I think, and
Yeah.
You have to give him kudos for that. Whatever it is that he does know, he's protecting. And
Yeah, totally.
let that be.
Yeah.
So
Well, maybe it's it's a big deal to put your reputation on the line when you're that high profile.
But I
figure.
wonder why you're still doing it when everybody at this point kind of knows that it's happening. Do you know what I mean? Like
Right.
everyone else has jumped on the bandwagon and be like, okay, look, Congress has a UAP task force. Obviously, they're taking this seriously. It's no longer like Project Blue Book closed in '69. We actually have something going on investigating now. You have the only time I've seen bipartisan in everything with every congressional member agreeing is when it comes to this task force. But yet you have Neil deGrasse Tyson still just not wanting to admit it. Yet everybody else has. I wonder, is he part of like something that we don't know?
well, I wouldn't try to guess through that. It all will be revealed. Let's put it that way. He is. There's things going on that a lot of people haven't caught up with. It's being talked about everywhere, in some places nowhere, and you have to look at the total picture. It isn't just a political thing right now. It is our planet, our sun, our solar system,
and our entire globe.
That's
our
right.
entire globe.
That's right.
Not just America or
Right.
one country. It's everybody.
Exactly. And there's just so much going on. It's really hard for people to focus one way or the other. There's a lot of pull and push and all of that, and nobody really wants to be on the same page yet. And that's what I'm kind of hoping for, is that they all sit down and they go, okay, this is what we're looking at. And the chances of that are very small. You brought something up earlier to me. You talked about why presidential disclosure should not happen. And I want to know your opinion about that.
Okay.
Or not
first
should
of
not,
all-
but could not.
No, it absolutely should happen, but I'll
Okay.
tell you why it could not. First
Okay.
of all, okay, let me back up to a couple of things. The Fourth Amendment obviously prevents us from warrantless searches and seizures. You
Right.
also have corporations which have basically the same protections under the Constitution as a normal person.
Yeah.
You cannot go to the court and get an injunction or seek to enjoin, as it's told in lawyer terms, to open up the hangars at S4 or to show us what they got in their R&D at Rocketdyne or Skunk Works. Hal Puthoff said something fantastic in the documentary, the program. He said him and a couple colleagues, or at least one colleague, got together and wrote a list of what would need to be accomplished to get to disclosure. And they started with major things: the disruption in theology, politics, chaos, which I don't think there's going to be as much as chaos now as, say, after the War of the Worlds, audio broadcast by
Right.
Orson Welles. I think we're way past
I
that.
agree.
But he said it got down to the such nitty gritty where, let's imagine Corporation A, let's just say Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, was given technology, but Boeing Rocketdyne was not told. And then Skunk Works does something with this technology, whether they're involved in lasers or they created the stealth bomber. According to some of the elements of the stealth bomber were taken from, what we've recovered. And Hal Puthoff says that Boeing Rocketdyne would sue not just Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, they'd sue the government for not giving them this technology. So, and that's just the bottom of the nitty gritty. So you have every element there. Now, there was one loophole that would have been passed in 2023. There was a UAP, I think a Disclosure Act is what they called it. And
Right.
one of the elements of it, and it was passed in the Senate, but it was shot down in the House.
Yeah.
And one of the elements was that anything that, the Congress has to have every oversight of every special access program, including unacknowledged special access programs. And every time the government gives a contract, we have to be allowed to oversee everything. It was shot down by the members of the House, both sides. Why? Because the members that shot it down are being donated from Raytheon, Boeing, all the companies. And
that's a conflict of interest.
It absolutely is. So
100%.
I'd like to make a comment.
yeah,
Okay. My contact, ET
Talata?
contact, Talata, has a lot to say about all this. Okay.
who is it?
Talata. Okay.
Okay.
Talata. It's either Talera or Talata. I say Talata. I'm a Swede and I say it funny. Okay. He is a male entity, he's fifth dimensional being, has a lot of opinions. Now he's talking from absolute knowledge. If you think that ET doesn't know what goes on this planet, you absolutely know what's going on.
Yeah.
The way our Constitution is written is that we have a commander in chief, the president, and that the people vote him into office. That gives him certain executive powers over everything. He commands the military. Now, for some reason, the DOD way back when shot off from it, and without notice. Even Eisenhower warned about this. There's a military industrial complex that has nothing to do with our country or anything. They're its own entity. When you're using he said, she said to keep the truth from coming out, you allow people to gain ability over you, and lawyers are a big part of this. When you give corporations identities, like a real person, and you give them the power of suing the government, that actually breaks our Constitution. You know that, right? It slams it because it's no longer within the power of the people. These oligarchies are taking over, and they should not be doing that. That's the number one reason that Talata thinks that it will never, ever come to pass. And the president has no power to admit one way or the other because he's dealing with that. He's also dealing with the military industrial complex that has authority over him and the entire United States as well. And disclosure, and this is how he explained it to me, disclosure is only going to happen one way as a result, because none of what they've been doing has anything to do with anything that you or anybody else on this planet knows about. Okay. It's completely what's the word when it's under covert. Thank you. Is that whatever their agenda is, it will erupt in a national security incident. Okay. That's the only way a sitting president, is going to disclose anything, when he is told we now have a national security incident, and only disclose what they want him to disclose about what that means. Okay? We, as the people, have a whole bunch of work to do if we're going to stop this situation. It has nothing to do with going to Congress and having everybody disclose into Congress. Okay? Because they never put anything into the record. Only one thing that I've witnessed went into the record was a piece of paper, and it was in the last one, and it was a national security incident paper work. Okay, that defines and codifies what that would mean. All right.
Well, this is all intentional, obviously.
It is intentional. It's orchestrated. Okay.
100% controlled completely.
Right. Now, you all have to ask yourself a question. Everybody on the ground worldwide, if you want true disclosure, this is coming from ET, point blank, straight from me, well, his mouth to me, to you. The people have to regain control, period. And that means forcing the military-industrial complex, and I don't think you're going to be able to do it because they are powerful, unbelievably powerful. They are worldwide powerful, and they're into everything. You have no idea what they're into. Okay.
Oh, everything. Look at Halliburton during the Iraq War. I mean, they funded everything from taking care of the mail to building the houses where the troops slept to the plumbing. I mean, they do jails and prisons.
That's crazy.
They
media.
Billions and billions. Oh, look at Operation Mockingbird.
No doubt. They have it all planned out. So I think disclosure needs to come in the form of those of us who know what disclosure is, and with the information, get together and bring about cohesive, coherent, hands down, thought through agendas that they're applying, not us or ET. In other words, we have to watch what their agendas are. If somebody's got rule over you, you need to watch what they're doing.
Yes.
Stop them from watching us so much as us watching them, and relaying it to one another so that we all know what's going on. Because if you don't, you're going to get surprised one day in a way you don't want to be surprised. Okay? Period.
But I still feel like the president has a platform where he could just flat out say they're real.
I agree. You know, they could just, if they don't want to talk about the technology for national security, I could understand it. But just admit to us we're being visited. It seems like, centuries ago, it was common knowledge, whether they were called elves, fairies, depending on where you were in the world, they all had some sort of visitation. It was not a secret 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, as it is now.
People know.
What you said about Eisenhower, what I think happened is early on, he was part of the program, I would think. And if you remember, there was that 1954 incident where he was denied access into Area 51. He threatened to invade with an army battalion, and I don't know what made him stop, but he never gained access. I believe his farewell speech warning us of the military-industrial complex was basically him saying, this was started by us, but I'm out of the loop now, and it's gone rogue.
Truman started it. Truman
did, but he was the next president after.
Remember Senator Barry Goldwater tried to get in, too.
Yeah, and he got put down. And
wasn't Goldwater the one that brought in to see the body?
The Blue Room.
Yeah, the Blue Room. Yeah.
Which I would love to see that too, because we've all heard about it. I mean, if you're in this field long enough, the Blue Room is where they keep ET tech or items
ET by the living and the non-living. That's the Blue Room. The craft go to S4. It's all in the Special Operations Manual 1-01 from 1954, printed by the War Department.
Did you ever get to talk to Paul Hellyer?
Oh, absolutely, multiple times. One of my great friends. Cool. And do you know what? Even at the last interview I did, he was 98 years old.
Well, explain who he is for people who don't know.
Oh man! For the longest time, he was the highest rated politician in the world to talk about UFOs.
He was the former
defense minister of Canada, who was, now that he's passed away, Justin Trudeau's godfather, because he was under the same administration of Trudeau's father.
Oh my!
That's when he was appointed, or
I did not know that.
However became the War Department. No. So the last interview I had with him, the guy was sharp as a tack. I couldn't believe it. And unfortunately, the way he passed away is he fell, and at his age, never recovered, and I don't know what happened. His wife told me he fell, hit his head, and then shortly after passed away a couple days later, something like that.
Wow.
But yeah, I had multiple interviews with him. Very, very great guy. Very
What did
down
he
to
have to
earth.
say that really impressed you?
A lot. Well, one thing I didn't even consider is you have like the Trilateral Commission, the World Economic Forum, and all those that he called the money mafia groups that really are controlling most of what's happening in the world. And now you have even companies like BlackRock or State Street that literally run like 50%, if not more, of the entire globe's assets. And they seem to be more in charge than a lot of these politicians in countries.
Absolutely.
I bought his book on that, Money Mafia, because I heard him speak once.
Yeah.
I met him. I got to meet him. Real nice guy.
Yeah.
But man, oh man, but I had to put all the banking industry, insurance industry on my naughty list, along with the intelligence agencies.
Did you meet him at the MUFON Symposium 2015?
Probably.
That's where I had breakfast with him. That was the only time I actually met him in person. Outside of that, we only spoke on the phone and through the internet.
He had a little table, and people he was very gracious.
Yeah.
So well, that's
normally
really cool.
Retired politicians have a little bit of arrogance. He definitely did not. He was really cool. Speaking of disclosure, let me ask you guys this. You remember General Ashed, right? From the Israeli Space Force?
Oh, yeah. Who made those statements about...
That he made the statements that U.S. and at least U.S. troops, I don't know what other troops along with U.S., are on Mars working with ETs and underground tunnels. And he basically said that the ETs don't want to disclose. And so I don't know if we can trust him or not. We don't know if that's a psyop, but he's definitely had a long history of his life.
With your head. No, absolutely untrue. Not true. And I can give you 3 reasons why right now, without even thinking about it. A, Mars is a dead cord planet. It has no magnetosphere at all. No amount of rock is going to protect you from gamma radiation. You'll be dead 5 minutes after you get there.
No Galactic Federation either.
There's no Galactic Federation. None of that. It's all disinformation and misinformation. I can't cuss here, so
you almost did. I saw it.
You're saying the Galactic Generation or Galactic Federation in full is not real.
No such thing.
I don't hear it from contactees. I mean, there's a couple out there who are promoting it.
You said that. I've never heard it from a contactee either, but somehow so many other people just
well, you got to watch who's talking about it and why.
There's a couple out there who are promoting it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But no, Mars cannot be, it's not habitable. And it doesn't matter how many robots you build to terraform it. It's outgassing. It's dangerous. They'll never, you could send robots there all day long.
He is a high-level official, though, which was interesting that he would come forward and say
very high level.
Yeah, which makes you wonder why.
Somebody
what is the agenda behind it?
A general, leading the Space Force or whatever their space... not Space Force, but their space program was. And he had a lot of accolades in his life. And it begs the question, why would he say all that in his, early to mid 80s when he's near the end of his life? It's like he almost wanted to get something off his chest. Or is he just someone else muddying the waters, which really irritates me?
He might be perfectly innocent and been told this and believed it.
That's what worries me. When Trump recently, through his press secretary, said, "Oh, the drones were nothing; they were just FAA tests." Okay, well, we know that can't be the truth because maybe 95% absolutely look like drones and operate like drones, but the other 2 to 5%, they do not look like drones. What happens when you see 100 of them together, like a fleet of UFOs?
I think can do that. Absolutely can do that. And you have to understand that they have the ability to scare people nowadays because they can use, it's called 12D holography. And you think you're looking at the real thing and it's BS up in the sky.
Well, Project Bluebeam, that's all it is. It creates holograms of whatever they want us to think. And remember,
see anything. And
Werner
the Chinese are really good at it.
What Werner von Braun told Carol Rosin about 50 years ago, he said that the final card they're going to play for control is going to be the fake alien invasion. And that begs the question: is that kind of what's happening now to kind of
Yes.
rein us
That's what I
in?
think.
Full,
I think it was a dry
full-on
run.
false flag in operation right now. It started about 8 months ago for the full. It's being implemented as we speak, and they're not going to stop. Yeah.
That's
So what
sad.
about Dr. Edgar Mitchell? You got to talk to him as
I
well.
did, and unfortunately, the last time I never released that final interview with him because
Oh.
it was the Wednesday before he passed away on Friday, and you could tell he didn't sound very
Oh.
well. I
Oh.
didn't know he was like ready to pass away, so after I recorded it, I'm like, you know what? I'll call him in a couple weeks. We'll do another one where he sounds better, and then he passed away. I was like, unbelievable. But at least I had, I'd probably say 8 conversations with him. Um, I was kind of hoping you'd tell me more, but I didn't know until I first interviewed him. You guys probably know this by now, or maybe knew this before I
Well,
spoke to
Dolly
him.
has a connection to him.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
but
met
so
him when I
you
was
knew that
14.
he grew up in Roswell and he was in high school when
Yeah.
the Roswell incident happened, and
Yeah.
he said it was not a secret. Everybody in his school knew. Every adult in town knew.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, it
wow.
was just known. And
Yeah.
I didn't know that until he actually told me that.
Yeah, I met him in Florida. My father took me to meet him. My father was working for NASA, and when I was 14 and I had that encounter that was so huge, and I was like trying to deal with everything, he thought Edgar would help me because he was already starting the consciousness thing.
Yeah. With what's the name of the group that he
Free.
has?
It's the Institute.
Say it again. Yeah, the name of the
Free.
institute.
F-R-E-E.
Yeah,
That one?
FRE.
No, I thought there was.
No, there was one before that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Institute of something or other. Maybe
Yeah.
someone in chat knows.
Anyway, regardless, I'm sure someone in the chat
He
knows.
tried
But
to
yeah, it's a
hypnotize me.
consciousness. Apparently, he said the reason he started it is when he was on the moon and he saw the Earth in what normally would be, the moon's place. He
Right.
had like a revelation of how like small we are and how big everything is. But I know there was another incident there. Linda Moulton Howe tried to interview. Oh, geez, why am I blanking on his name? Come on, who was the commander of the mission of Apollo 11? I have him on my wall.
Chris Kraft?
No.
communications
The first Neil Armstrong.
Yeah.
And even though he went, it was so weird. He came back from the moon with the rest of the crew. Why? Yeah, that's it. Noetic sciences.
Noetic
That's the
sciences.
one.
Thank you.
That's how I actually interviewed him. I reached out to them and said, "Hey, I'd love to interview him," and they put me in touch with his agent, and then in touch with him, and then eventually I just had to call his house when I talked to him. But anyway, what Linda tried to do before he passed away was she wanted Neil Armstrong to interview, but she heard through the grapevine from someone that was close to him that when they landed, there was a fleet of ships watching them. So, and I would think something similar might have happened to Edgar Mitchell, but he didn't want to say.
I'm not going to say, okay, I'm not going to tell you I heard it from him. Okay. I had long conversations with this man. After he tried to hypnotize me and they realized that I couldn't be, that I was already awake.
Mm-hmm.
And then he realized what was going on and he knew my father, they were friends.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He started getting me to want to come into his groups and whatever. And I didn't want to do it because at that time I'm very, very psychic and I didn't want to be singled out by anybody. I didn't want to stand out. This was for people who are looking for answers. I pretty much already knew a lot by then.
Mm-hmm.
But I brought up to him what my father had spoken about. And he listened to me very calmly. He smiled at me. He was looking me dead in the eyes. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to spill. And I said, I know that they were there when you guys were there.
The ETs, the UFOs on the moon.
Yeah. And they were coming and going. And that you guys were given messages from them.
Telepathic messages, right?
Yes, directly contacting them.
Wow.
And he didn't say anything. And I said, I know that you're under an NDA that is so bad, it's indescribable. And he just smiled at me. And he put his hand on my hand and he said, you must do what you must do. And I said, you're right. And he just patted my hand after that. And he said, we all have lived this life and we all have gotten out of it what we've gotten out of it, and we all must go forward from whatever point that we're at. And I'm like, okay, he's trying to give me some good advice here. And
Yeah.
then he finally said, only speak what you have absolute experience to speak from. Be safe when you do it. That was all he said to me after that. And I'd spoken to him many times throughout my lifetime after that. My father had contact with him until my father died.
With your father had contact with Edgar, you're saying?
Yeah. Yes.
Any other astronauts from the moon missions, or
Yeah,
just Edgar?
Gordon.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he worked with Gordon on. You remember Disney World in Orlando?
I've never been there, but I know of it. Yeah.
Gordon worked on the underground facility. So did my dad. They worked together.
Oh.
This just makes me so sad that all these people are holding so much knowledge.
And they passed away without telling us. That's what pisses me off.
If they could write it down, but these NDAs extend to their families.
Yeah.
And will endanger their families. So it's
my dad had incredible NDAs, and it nearly
broke him.
It nearly broke him. He seemed to survive all of that, and all the way to the end of his life, he did what he had to do. Okay, and I'm privy to a lot, and I can't say because it would mean my family, and I can't go there. Okay, I just cannot. I will tell you that everybody on this planet knows that ET exists. They all, deep in their chests and their minds, they know they exist. And we just got to walk on from that point forward, I mean, learn, research everything you can about this subject. Try to learn to use your abilities. That's what Edgar Mitchell was doing so hard. He was trying to do ET's point blank demonstration of, we need to learn to use our abilities. We need to use our consciousness. Okay. And that's the path he took, and he stayed on it. And I'm so happy that he did, because it stands to the point. There are other people with huge NDAs, Russell Targ, that man couldn't talk either, but look what he did. Okay.
Bob Lazar.
Yes, absolutely.
Did you ever get to talk to Bob Lazar?
He's one of the 1% that I'm still trying, Unfortunately, the closest we had is I had Jim Goodall call him and put him on speaker, and we got a clip of that. Unfortunately, Jeremy Corbell made us shut that down, because this is the time when Jeremy Corbell sort of owned Bob Lazar and owned his media experiences. So I was really disappointed. It's funny, though. You can call United Nuclear's company, and he answers the phone. But I don't understand why, but he's definitely on the list, the final 1%. Like I said, there's not very many people I haven't interviewed. And everybody I've interviewed, this, Preston, and Dolly, too. I always want to interview them again, because 2 hours is never enough. 12 hours is not enough,
Yeah. And as you talk, they begin to open up a little bit, and you start to get, peel back the onion.
Yeah.
To get to the good stuff.
I personally think the only way disclosure is going to happen is there's 3 sets of people that are important. One is people like Dolly, the people who've actually interacted with ETs.
100%.
They can tell us what they look like, what the crafts look like, everything. The way they contact you,
That's the cutting edge of UFO research, right there.
It is. The second is crash and retrieval, because that gives us artifacts. The third is a combination of crash and retrieval, but it's the people that are involved in the programs. Unfortunately, you guys just said it, the NDAs. That's why they're not talking. We want them out. Come out and tell us something, please. Show us something. We're at the age where we can get so much information now, but we're not seeing the stuff. Me and Preston, we've been saying this for decades. When are we allowed to go to a museum and see the Roswell wreckage and the bodies? What about the Cape Girardeau? All of that. We deserve it. And it's just sad that we're cut off.
Show us a darn photo that we, is absolutely, not conclusive, that we know is real and that is endorsed. They could do that. Apparently that meeting at Edwards Air Force Base in 1954 was filmed.
You're talking about with Eisenhower. Did you know who else was there? You wrote it in your book. Of course you know. You have a whole chapter on it. I was blown away. Albert Einstein, was it Bishop or Cardinal Mahoney?
Yeah, leaders in business, science, rocketry.
The only one who went up was Eisenhower. They did not take anybody else. They only took Eisenhower. Period.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But why do you think he allowed them to, make the exchange for abductions for technology?
He did not.
But
that is a lie. Period.
That's a lie. Okay, why did we continue to build nukes when they warned us about them?
That's also a problem. You got it right. I want everybody to start down and start, make a list of pros and cons. Think about things that make sense and don't make sense. Okay. Please understand that we already had nukes by then. We worked very hard to get them. We already knew what nuclear power we were working on, but they had crashes and they were trying to back engineer by that time already. And they wanted their technology. That's why. And ET went, not helping you. You're technologically not advanced enough to be given the secrets of the universe. They refused to give it to them. And they told them so. And they said, unless you want to annihilate yourselves, you need to stop using the technology nuclear that you're using now, because you'll kill yourselves with it. And Eisenhower's reply to them was the same one as 7 other world leaders who also got the right of their lives worldwide. And that was, it is a deterrent, because we're afraid of blowing each other up. And it's the only way to stop ourselves from doing so. That was his reply to them. And they said, help yourselves. Please think about what we're saying. They have never given help to our governments worldwide. They have never given them technology willingly. The reason that accidents happen is there are reasons why they've crashed. And it's not hard to explain. Okay. These are all scientific facts that all add up. And if you sit down and write them all down and look at the truth of them, you realize that they wanted their technology. They were willing to do anything for it because they had an understanding for the last 100 years of what's coming at the solar system. And they want off this planet. They wanted to follow them, and they would have done anything to get that technology. And they're still trying. They're not where they ought to be for it. That's why.
Let me pop up this question because this is relevant and it's kind of a tangent. But this is from Louise. If you're not aware of it, there was another plane crash today.
In Ontario or Toronto.
Toronto.
So Louise is asking, there have been enough plane crashes in 2025, including today. Could this be due to CMEs? You think that's a possibility?
It's the sun putting energy out that our planet is reacting with violent weather.
Is that what a CME is?
Yeah, coronal mass ejection, yeah.
Gotcha.
It's screwing up with the computers and guidance and all of that.
Well,
that could
it's not
be a
just
factor
that.
here.
The weather is really bad. The Beaufort gyre went last year. Everything's cooling off now. They have unbelievable wind, and they haven't been used to that for so many years that nobody right now knows what to do. They should have shut that airport down the minute the wind hit what it did, and yet they allowed that plane to land.
There's another problem, and it's pretty political, but it's true. It's the whole DEI crap. Obama signed a law that said we need more diversity, more of anybody but white straight men. And you have people that 1,000 people took the exam to be, air traffic controllers. Many of them got 100% on their test scores, but they were denied because they weren't diverse. Yeah. And because of Obama's law, I believe it was 2013, somewhere in that era when he passed it, we've had a shortage of them. So, for instance, the plane that crashed, in over Reagan Airport, 400 feet, 350 feet off the ground where it collided in the helicopter, you had 19 people where it should have been 30. And the same person that was talking to the helicopter was talking to the plane. So that's why there's a shortage of people, because of stupid laws like that.
Yeah. We also had a pilot who was learning at that point. They had a co-pilot who was an instructor with him and said, you're at 400, not 300. But they didn't hear the rest of it. It's too late. They hit. That helicopter should never have been that high. That was
it should have been 200 feet. Not mistaken at the max. Yeah.
But the controller in the tower would have been able to see that. He would have seen levels, and he should have been screaming at the top of his lungs. But he was not able to focus on what that was, because the other guy who had that call walked off on a break at a critical moment. This is nuts. This is stupidity reigning supreme. We have a lot of that going on worldwide. It's not just us, it's worldwide. And it's because obsolescence has now been built into the system where people are obsolete obsolescent as well and dangerous because the level of education, if you want diversity and equity, I'm all for it. Everybody should have a chance, but do it from the educational level up.
Do it meritocracy, please. I don't care
Yes.
what you look like, what you
Yeah.
are. Just if you're eligible for the job, get it. Don't
Right.
turn down eligible people to fill in the role with
Right,
someone
exactly.
that's not as
We should
smart.
all start in the schools, and they need to quit doing political agendas in the school and do more teaching. So it's a
This
whole.
is the main problem with society. It's incredibly corrupt. It's based on money and greed and power. And this leads directly to the reasons behind the UFO cover-up, which I don't think will ever end. The only way we're ever going to see truth from our governments is if it's to their benefit.
Right.
Yes, and you know what? I'm a little bit hopeful that when Doge gets into the Pentagon, and since they can't,
They're already there. They've already walked in the door. They're
well,
there now.
good, because I'm hoping they're gonna look at some of these, grants or contracts, and they'll be like, explain to us why you're giving this.
You're gonna hear
$500 million. I would really hope. They're like, okay, that's a USAP. Okay, well then bring it to Congress and tell it. I'm hoping something like that will happen, but I can't get my hopes too high because there doesn't seem a vested interest to tell us at this point. Like I said, it goes back to people like Dolly and people who have actually, whether they've been on the scenes of crash and retrievals, where they were the part of the people that were picking up the pieces or the bodies, doing the autopsies. We need everybody to come out. We need more whistleblowers now more than ever.
And Dolly uses the word consensus, which keeps ringing in my head. I'm like, if we can just come to a consensus of what we know to be true and quit this infighting, which is in every field, let's face it.
Yeah.
But it's bad in the ufology field.
I want to read you something that Talata made me write down word for word. Okay.
Sure.
I went over 10 times before I had it exactly as he wanted me to state it. This is to everybody on this planet. Disclosure from those in authority over humanity will always tactically use plausible deniability. Their agenda supersedes all humanity. Our reality is their construct. It is their power and its weaponization which impugns all explanation to humanity. He says, therefore, you need to learn all that's learnable. Understand each of us must use our abilities to discern our position in this paradigm, and wisdom is our freedom from their tyranny. And he meant the word tyranny. I asked him 3 times. Tyranny. They are tyrannical. Okay. And he said they're going to do what they're going to do, whether we like it or not. And we're being run around like animals in pens. Go this way, go that way, go this way, go that way. They use deniability, they use smoke and mirrors, they use outright lies, disinformation, misinformation. They use all of it. They have nobody in authority has ever disclosed that ETs exist. Nobody. The only people that have done it are congressmen outside of that authority who would say, well, yeah, or people like, Greer, or people like Lazar, or people like me who are saying it publicly. And then they have whistleblowers. You got to understand something. These guys are on leashes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Look, when David Grush couldn't answer any question without saying it has to be in a skiff.
That's right. Exactly. Because he hasn't been let go. He hasn't quit. He's on permanent furlough if he's anywhere. And it means that his NDAs are active. His security clearance is still in place. And he can't say anything that they haven't pre-approved him to say.
In Bob Lazar era and pre his era, we're talking 50s, 60s, 70s. It was called a 10-10, 10-year imprisonment, $10,000 fine. I heard after Bob Lazar, it went up to 25-year imprisonment, $250,000 fine. I wouldn't be surprised if it's now life without parole.
It's life without parole in Leavenworth at hard labor. And you can't guarantee your family is going to exist anymore. That's what
that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Look at all the children of Roswell that were threatened. We'll pick your bones in the desert. And there was like a 6-year-old girl, one of them. The daughter of the fireman,
Frankie Rowe.
That's right. That's right.
So, Dr. J, do you give out your email? Because there are people in chat wanting to contact you.
Sure. Dr. J Radio Live at Gmail. So just see the YouTube channel name under my name. Just
I'll type it in chat.
Okay.
If that's all right. I just didn't want to give it out unless it was all right with you.
And make sure anybody, if you want to write an email, put some especially like words in the title, because I get so much email. I rarely check it unless I know there's something there. So I would have to literally search UFO question or UFO alien gray. Just put as many keywords about UFOs, UAPs, anything, and then I'll find it.
So it's Dr. J Radio Live
At Gmail.
At Gmail.
at gmail.com.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Because, Nicholas, I remember you, Nicholas. He's eager to reach out to you. Nicholas. There he is.
Nicholas. Let me see. Is it what I'm thinking of? It's Cashmore. Cashmore. Hey, how are ya?
All right. There you go. All right. Gosh, this is so interesting. So all these people you've talked to, has there been a favorite guest? Some are real high profile, but some are, a little bit obscure.
There's
Stanton Friedman.
It's like trying to choose, from your favorite children. Stanton Friedman to me was the godfather. Obviously, growing up, just seeing him, he was like, it's like I wanted his job. You know what I mean? A little funny story. After high school, when I got into a community college, before I chose my major, before I founded a business and went down that path, I was so into ufology. I'm like, how can I turn this into a career like Stanton Friedman? And I was even looking, where can I get a degree in ufology? And at the time, in the late 90s, it was Moscow University. I was actually considering going to study UFOs there. That didn't happen, but that's how obsessed I've been with this topic.
Amazing. Yeah, I spoke with Stanton Friedman too. That guy can talk.
Yeah. But he only had 2 lectures, and so he's good to prime the people. But he, remember, he really didn't touch abductions for the longest time. It wasn't until he hooked up with Kathleen Marden and said, okay, for sure, the Betty and Barney Hill case are real, and then the Travis Walton. But for the most part, his lectures were one of 2. Science is wrong, or science was wrong, and UFOs are real. It was always those 2 until his passing day.
Yeah, he got mad at me when I mentioned that. He's like, what? I do. I talk about Betty Hill all the time. I'm like, well, yeah, you do.
More so at the end of his life, not so much, in the...
But I have to give him kudos, because he was a pioneer when no one else was talking about it. He was a scientist who was
absolutely
gung-ho. This is real. We can prove it. A true, honest-to-God scientist, objective researcher, too. He wasn't pushing an agenda.
Yep. So, and he went to school with Carl Sagan, University of Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Small world.
Okay. What about Chris Bledsoe? You spoke with him. He's real.
Oh, God. So fantastic. And another such a down-earth person. Not too long ago, someone asked me if I interviewed him, and I said yes, so I sent them the links. And then because I hadn't spoke to him in a few years, I just called him up, and he happened to be going to a conference, so he was in the car. We didn't get to talk long, but he wants to do something again soon. And from the last time I spoke to him, apparently he's had a lot more contacts that I haven't had a chance to ask about. So it's not just what happened in the late 2000s and early 2010s, with that glass-like alien in the forest by his house. Apparently, if I'm not mistaken, he's also like a starseed. Apparently, UFOs come to him now. He'll be somewhere and something will appear watching him, kind of like Stan Romanek when he first came out and showed all the videos.
Yeah, and I think he was a victim, honestly, of a sting.
Operation. Oh, for sure. So many were. Look at Dr. Jonathan Reed. I interviewed him, and before I interviewed him, I did three interviews with him, and then 2 where I helped another host interview Dr. Reed just because I investigated his case so much. When I first learned about the case in the late 90s, it must have been through second or third hand information of the person who wrote the article in UFO magazine, because it made it look like the alien was dead. It didn't mention the bracelet. It didn't mention anything like that. That guy actually has elements of both contact abduction, because that same ET, who he didn't kill, by the way, was just playing possum. It was alive when he brought it back to his house. It even screamed at one point when it was in the freezer. And you could even see in the video when he's examining it, its eyes are slowly opening. And when he came home one day, his house was ransacked. But here's the interesting thing. He said that from the freezer that he kept the being, which he called Freddy, there was footsteps that were the size of it wet, walking from the freezer to the wall, like it walked through the wall. And since then, he's been visited well over 100 times. And he said people who get involved in this case are also, being contacted by that very same being with that wound on the face, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I have questions about his case, but I do have the book. I did hear him speak. It's interesting. So what about Eric von Daniken? He's such a superstar in this field.
Yes, he is. And, for the longest time, he only focused on ancient aliens. And it wasn't until he talked to Edgar Mitchell that he said, you know what? I believe Roswell is real. And only since so much more has come into the open has he finally started to accept, well, it looks like the chariots of gods have returned. He was kind of careful to keep his reputation just on what made him popular in the 60s and 70s with Chariots of the Gods and all the books that followed. But yeah, super down to earth. And at his age, late 80s, he's still very energetic.
Yeah, he's still on the lecture circuit. So
God
bless him. Amazing. Did you ever get to talk to Jacques Vallée? I would love to talk to him.
No, he's, like I said, him, Bob Lazar. There's just a couple people I have not spoken to. I haven't spoken to David Fravor yet. Ryan Graves. I'm Alex Diedrich. Those are the three pilots that chased those craft, the Gimbal, Tic Tac, and the Go Fast. I spoke to Lou Elizondo.
Oh, you did? Wow. What did you think of him?
Yeah. I hate how some people like Greer call him a disinformation agent. I think he's telling the truth. And did you have a chance to read this book?
Imminent? I had read part of it. No, not all of it.
It's really, really good. And I think that guy is definitely telling the truth. I don't think he's lying.
I don't think he's telling all the truth, though.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. In my interview that I did with him, it was not long because it was a last minute. He could only devote, 30, 40 minutes. It wasn't the questions the answers that he said so much. It was what he didn't say. And that's where you get more of the information. So he's still under the NDA, and his book, Imminent, before it was published, for a year, it had to go through the UAP task force to be redacted. But you're right. I don't think until he's ever released from the NDA, and I don't think anyone's ever going to be released from them. That's why we're never going to get the real answers we need. One thing he said, though, was mind-blowing. He saw a video of a craft underwater, and it passed by an oil derrick. We're talking like a large oil platform. This was bigger than that, and it was going like 550 knots. Nothing can do that we know of, or, that we have terrestrial technology without, using something that is off-world technology.
Yeah, well, they're not. They have the ability to become not in the same dimension with us at the same time. In other words, they amp up into the fourth dimension. And when you go through water, they're just slicing through dimensional space, not the water. That's why they don't hurt anything as they slide through it at that, speed. Because people have asked me, what about dolphins? What about the fish? They're killing everything. No. They're going right through it. It doesn't matter. They're not affecting anything.
It's very interesting you said that, Dolly. One thing I've heard from multiple people is that Jim Sparks was probably the first one who told me about this, and then of course
you spoke with Jim Sparks.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you know what? He's kind of disappeared for the last almost decade. He's
20 years.
I don't know where he is. Yeah, but what he told me is they have the ability to be in two dimensions at once. So you could literally be looking at it and it looks see-through, because maybe it's like 50, 40% in this dimension and 50, 60% in the other dimension. Yeah. They could literally be simultaneously in two places.
Exactly.
And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it's because all the dimensions are together. Like where you're at right now, you have 12 dimensions on you. Okay. You're in the third dimension, and everything above you dimensionally is still in the same space with you. Okay. So if I was to be in where you're at right now, and I I step up into the fourth dimension, you would still be able to see me as I went up. If I was totally in the fourth dimension, you'd lose sight of me. But if I was somewhere in between, you'd still see me. And that's their technology. They can do that. And it just depends. It's wherever they're at. Like if they're above Cincinnati in the between third and fourth dimension, everybody in Cincinnati is only seeing them in that spot, not anywhere else, just there. Unless they're going to go interdimensional completely to go somewhere else in the universe. And
Can
then,
you explain to us the fourth dimension?
Sure. The fourth dimension, okay, mathematically, you can look at it like this. You can draw it out, okay? There are people who have mapped it out mathematically and then put it in a computer and they brought it out. And it's like you see more of what's really there. In other words, all the corners and the way the light bends, you can see extra dimensionally outside of where the light's bending across your physical eye. You can see that there's another dimension and it expands out, and you can see all the light in it with you. In other words, and you can see whatever's sitting in that dimension with you. It is an expansion of light in that your eye would not perceive otherwise if you were able to see it. Okay, all dimensions are light. Everything is light. You're light. Every proton in your body is pure light. Because you're in the third dimension, we're gravity heavy. So less gravity dimensionally happens. You go up in the fourth dimension, there's less gravity there than there is here. And you see more of the light. The optics in your eyes are very specific to the third dimension. As a matter of fact, you have lenses in your eyes that stop you from seeing ultraviolet light.
Yeah, we only see a fraction of
That's
light.
right. Dimensionally speaking, if you were to transfer into the fourth dimension, you would see all the light that you're not seeing now, and it would expand out. The spaces would be bigger. You would see more corners, more dimensional.
Well, here's one way I think you're looking at it. The first dimension might be considered a dot, second a line, the third, like a cube.
Yeah.
But the fourth is you can move inward and outward.
Right. You see all light.
Like a three-dimensional cube.
So like a macro
You'd be
universe.
almost fifth dimensional in light. Yeah, it's crazy. The first dimension is nothing but a flat plane. Okay, there's nothing to it. All right, nothing. We have the ability to go there, but we would only be, your perspective would be so limited. The light that you perceive would be so limited. You would only see what's next to you in any direction. Okay. Above and below you would be almost impossible to discern. It would be right, left, front, front, back, side to side. That's all you would see. In the second dimension, you have height. Okay. And
we're going to get into this in the sequel to symmetry.
Yeah. Your view expands, and now you're able to see not only what's in right next to you, but now you can see further up, higher and lower, below and above. Okay. We're in the third dimension. So we have a bird's eye view here. Okay, of everything around us. And we have senses because we have bodies that detect all this stuff. So we can not only feel it, you have your 5 physical senses, and then you have your psychic senses. Okay. If you were fully using your psychic sense, you would see exactly what's in the third dimension with you, all of it. You would see all the light here, but you don't. That's one of the things that ET wants people to wake up to. Your consciousness is capable of seeing everything. You have to allow it to happen.
So would you say source is in the 10th dimension? That's what Jose Sanchez is saying.
Source is at the center of our universe.
Jose, he is the greatest artist. Did you get his emails? I put you in touch. Make sure he is such an amazing artist. A lot of my thumbnails are from him.
I've seen a lot of your work. Source is, if you're going to talk about the 10th dimension, source would be consider our entire universe with all 12 dimensions in it. Okay. And source would be solidly in the center of it. Okay. And it is pure light. The reason that we can't telescope it or look at it is because light bends. Our optics will see everything in a circle around it. You can only go in a circle or above in a circle this way. You can't get you can't work your way to the middle. It's like a black hole. You can't see what's in the middle of that black hole because it's so gravity heavy. Okay. You're still being influenced by gravity here. So the light's going to bend. You'll never see what's in source. It's right there.
This is what's amazing about ET Tech is that they can, have understanding of this. And I did interview this guy in upstate New York who was taken on board, but the craft came into his house.
Mm-hmm. The craft came into his house?
Into his house.
Yeah, I dared.
Wow.
I dared them. I dared. A lot
It
of
lifts
women
him up.
do
He says
this.
the living room just turned
It
into
would
the
have freaked
craft.
out the entire damn neighborhood and knocked out a power out, right? So they brought in what Lazar would call the sports model. They brought it
Yeah.
in and went right through my house with it. Okay, with my mother home. My dad had passed away, and it came in. It coming in red because that particular dimensional shift that they're in produces red light. Okay, and he went right through. Just this.
I remember a
You
case
know?
in UFOs over California that you wrote, Preston,
I know what
and it
the
was
Yep.
a mother that had been an abductee, and she remembered the night before that her 7-year-old son, or maybe 6, was also abducted, and they were having breakfast. He was eating cereal, and she didn't know what to say, so she just said, "Did you sleep well, honey?" And he goes, "Yeah." He keeps eating his cereal. And he goes, "But my alien friends came to visit me last night." She's like, "Oh my God, he remembers." And she goes, "But they get mad at me." And she's like, "Why?" He goes, "Because when they take me through the walls, I stop to look at all the balls, the colored balls, which I'm assuming he's seen the molecules and atoms.
Right.
They're able to dematerialize them and literally make it, you can walk through solid
Yeah.
objects."
They don't they just put them in a shift. Have you ever seen, okay, what's the name of that place? I'm gonna have a moment here where all the stuff is on the sides of mountains in the country. The Nazca lines, okay?
Oh, Peru,
Okay,
yeah.
one of the things that they don't show you a lot on TV, and when they do, everybody gets shocked when they see it, is it looks like a craft with a light coming down and then a squiggly line coming down like that. And I've always told Preston that's exactly what it is. It's an energy ribbon. That ribbon, the energy in that ribbon takes you out of the third dimension and it throws you into the fourth dimension. And it can lift you up. It can pull you through walls. It can do everything. And I call it the shift. Everything becomes opaque to you when you're in it. Okay. And so you can go through walls when you're in that energy ribbon. And one of the first things that happened to me, the first time I saw it, I freaked out. I was like trying to backtrack. Why am I going through the wall? I'm going through the ceiling. Oh my God. And it felt funny. And I didn't realize it then. It took me a few years to like put 2 and 2 together on my consciousness or my experience. I'll use experience better, is that I felt it. I could feel going through the wall. I could smell going through the wall. I could see going through the wall. I could hear going through the wall. I could taste going through the wall. And different walls taste different to me. Different trees taste different. They feel different to me. It's like you're being pulled physically through a dimensional shift through objects that you're in here with. And it freaked me out. It took me a while to like reconcile myself to that, but that's exactly what you're feeling. You don't lose your senses when you're going through this. You have all of them. They're all intact.
I know the feeling. I never told you this, Dr. J, but I finally was pulled on board, had a fully conscious onboard experience.
When?
May of 2022.
No, I did
from my
not know
house.
that.
Yeah.
You're kidding me.
No, it was fantastic. I almost swore there.
What kind of beings were they?
Well, it was Dolly's beings, actually.
It's because you've been investigating her case.
It was his birthday. It was his birthday present. Yeah.
There was a hybrid Canadian bear.
Why? So tomorrow I got him with Mama. Yeah.
Tell him to come visit me, but not to scare me. I will probably be so scared it'll either be buried in my subconscious, or I will tell them
That's
to go
the
away.
problem. If
they appear behind me, or if I wake up and they're in my room, I will freak out. I better be forewarned, like in my mind. Okay, hey, we're about to come.
Hey, if you can go skydiving, what's the problem? I'm not going skydiving. That scares me. No way. You tried to get me to go. I'm like, no, thank you. You have fun.
120.
You know all about the chute, right? You could pack your own chute. You're absolutely 100% positive when you jump, your chute's right. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the whole point of skydiving is you have to.
And I have the reserve, which jump 82 I had to use because I had line twists on my main and I was spinning, so I had to cut away.
Yeah.
And land pretty low outside of the drop zone. My parachute landed in in the city outside the airport in a neighborhood, and some kids stole it. And they tried to charge $1,000 ransom for it, which
my goodness.
Fortunately I got it back for $100.
This is from Nicholas. Why are ships small when we see them but massive when you board them?
Perspective.
Bigger on the inside than they are on the outside.
Yeah, they can accommodate. The
Yeah,
little
that's what
guy,
Jonathan Reed said too.
yeah,
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 and
short and squat on the inside until I come on board. When Mama's on board, it's pretty tall too. But my seat conforms to me. It actually molds to me. Okay,
They're
because I'm tall.
they're
Okay,
manipulating space time, right? It's its own
yeah,
little environment.
yeah, and they can expand. This is a living ship. They're alive. Okay, they have their genetic. Well, not genetic. Their
AI.
No, well, no, Talat is a fifth dimensional being. He indwells the craft, but the craft is
Ah.
able to. It's got a. It's like they're little AIs. You know, they're alive to a point. They don't have a heartbeat, but they're alive. They can photosynthesize. They can do all kinds
Mm-hmm.
of things, and it carries their intelligence with them so that they can do things for ET that ET won't do. One of the things that I want to bring up to you is that
Mm-hmm.
ET does not go anywhere they can't get into a magnetosphere. Okay. That's safe.
Mm.
Okay. They don't like traveling in regular space. It's dangerous because once we leave our magnetosphere, anything they do on the outside of that, they're going to get out quick. And they have to because that gamma radiation, that's even where the ISS is, all of it is dangerous to them. They're biological beings, most of them. Talat is not. He's a fifth dimensional being, but even his craft can take hits from gamma radiation. They get him the heck out of there. They go interdimensional right away. They're gone. Okay. And they move through space time to go wherever it is they're going. That's one of the reasons that nobody's going to be on Mars by ET. They do have a moon base. They only occupy it at certain times, and it's almost always never the actual ET beings themselves. It's their AI guys that are doing it because they can take the gamma. They cannot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so that's why the ones that do the traveling are usually like the printed or made for missions because
Yeah. You know, the
they,
little guys that Whitley Strieber talks about,
yeah,
these guys are not highly, okay, how do I put this? They're not autonomous AI like we're trying to develop here. They are programmed AI to do what they do. And when they're done, they turn them off and they stack them up. Okay. And there are thousands, billions of them all over the universe. They do the job for everybody outside of normal, safe places for them to be. There are plenty of worlds in this universe that have functioning magnetospheres that they live in. They grow up, they have, it's not a problem. And they do come through space time to get here. It's the only way they could travel here. And all the people before, you know, that talked about, you know, that have to have robots, that have to be self-replicating.
mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah, like that first book I bought before I found Preston's that really upset
he
me.
was right. You can't travel through conventional space and get here. They go through space time. They go extra dimensional and move around that way. So,
Earlier when you were talking about psychic, that I had a story that Roger Lear told me before he passed away, which I thought is fantastic and, you know, if true, could make sense. That we all had all the psychic abilities that we're supposed to have.
we do.
In the
Yeah,
past.
absolutely. You still do.
Everything, right?
It's,
But for whatever reason, fluoride and stuff has shut us down. Well, the story of the Tower of Babel, apparently the only reason we were speaking in tongues is because at that point somehow they shut off, you know, our telepathy, and we had to vocalize things for the first time, and people couldn't communicate. That's what he said, and I thought that was a really interesting take because I'm like, I never thought of that.
Happened. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a secret. Fear is the worst thing you can do to humanity. Okay, and there've been slavery all the way back. Okay.
Oh yeah.
People been killing each other, threatening each other, stabbing, killing, blah blah blah. Okay, that kind of fear messes with your abilities. Okay, if you're unafraid, you're not going to be messing with your pineal gland. Okay, lots of things can make it calcify, and fear is one of them. Horrifically. And then they found out fluoride will do a really neat job of it really quickly. And so they did that. I find it interesting that a lot of Europeans won't use fluoride, and they'll tell you, well, it's because, you know, it messes with your body and everything. It goes straight to your pineal gland and gums it up like you got a kidney stone in your head. Okay?
Calcified. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. And we just need to wake up to that fact. They've been poisoning this planet for a long time, trying to keep us from getting smarter than them. Because your consciousness is what's intelligent. Your physical mind can only learn what it's programmed with. Your consciousness is what's driving the vehicle that you're indwelling. Okay. You really are who you are conscious wise.
And we can definitely do all of these things. And
Right.
this is one of their goals, really, is to wake people up. Okay, I'm bringing up this question. This is a weird one. I have never heard of anything like this. Oh no, wait, that's not the one I wanted to bring up, but here, I'll get to that one in a second. Sorry, Jose. This is because Safran's asked this twice. Does Dr. J remember the guest name he interviewed? This is so weird. That talked about when removing your shoes and putting them in the river where it meets the ocean can cause a visitation.
Oh, I don't know. Is that Robert Vandenberg?
I mean, that sounds crazy to me. Honestly,
I do not remember that. River meets the ocean can cause the visitation.
I'm only bringing it up because he's asked twice. He's like, ask my question.
Yeah. No, I definitely don't remember. Like I said, there's so many interviews, and then there's a couple hundred that are lost that never made it to YouTube because they were only aired on the stations they were on at the time.
Okay, let me bring up Jose's because I just pulled it up. I have a strange question. This might be a Dolly question. If ETs can go through walls, but they are, quote, solid beings, so can ghosts. Is there a relationship there, or is it just some weird kind of coincidence or different? Ghosts are not solid.
No, ghosts have no corporeal body anymore. You're ejected from it when you die. But your consciousness, that's what a ghost is consciousness. You're non-corporeal and you haven't left this plane here. You haven't gone where you should go. ETs know this. ETs are just like us. When they die, they go too. We all are in source together. Every being in the universe is in source at the same time. We are all here together. That's why they use the terms, you are us, we are you, we are all one. We are just beings that are indwelling bodies in different places in the universe to experience, in the third dimension anyway, to learn and to become wise and to learn that which we couldn't learn in source. There's an old saying, you can be an educated idiot with no wisdom.
I actually have a question now that you're taking questions in the chat to ask both of you. I did a video about this probably about 6 to 9 months ago, got very little views, unfortunately.
Sure.
Why do ETs lie? And let me tell you, you go back to, it could have been one of your books I read, Preston, where when there was the westward expansion, there was what someone thought was a train and a cowboy or something, or maybe someone in a wagon trail. And they asked what he thought was the conductor or the tracks, and the conductor, the alien, said something like, oh, this is a new type of advanced train with air brakes. That's the 1880s, 1890s, the airship mystery. Go forward, 40, 50 years, you have Adamski, you have all the people talking about the Space Brothers and Space Sisters from Moon, from Mars, from Venus, right? Then you get to Betty and Barney Hill, no, we're from Zeta Reticula. Then you get to Rendlesham. Oh, no, we're from the future. Now you get to
I don't think they told Betty that they were from Zeta Reticula. They never actually.
No, they did. They didn't say that. But remember, Marjorie Fish, took this.
That was an assumption. Rendlesham has got a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah.
ETs will sometimes be tight-lipped or a little misleading about where they come from.
No, I'm going to answer it. You want to know the answer? When we talk, you're thinking at the same time you're hearing every word I say. And your brain is overriding me, I guarantee it. You will even disagree with me in your head as I speak. And trust me, I'm psychic. You've been doing it all night tonight, okay? Everybody does it. When you're trying to understand something, ET will not directly lie to you. They will let you think what you're thinking, because to overwrite you would cause unbelievable chaos in your brain to the point that you couldn't handle it. Okay. So a lot of people are not good witnesses. Okay. A good witness is somebody who will let go of everything they think and observe from a point of view that is outside of everything they know. They're only getting the facts. Trained observers know this. Just state the facts. What did you see? How did you see it? Was it hot, cold? All of the clues all together. Remember as much as you possibly can. That makes you a decent, clear witness. Human beings cannot observe reality from any point of view other than the one that they're thinking, because they're not wide open psychic and they can't accept that which their physical mind can only allow them to accept. That's
Do,
why.
do you want to hear a really interesting
Okay.
story about eyewitness testimony? Well, first of all, for the longest time, an eyewitness statement alone, long before there was video cameras, could sentence someone to death.
Yeah.
I saw this person robbing the bank, and a second witness corroborated that. When I was in law school, in the beginning of the second year, I took criminal procedure. And it wasn't until after I found out this was done on purpose. The teacher's lecturing. It's a she. Somebody runs in the room, steals her purse, and runs out. They bring security in there, and they ask everybody. People are like, okay, it was a white man. It was a black man. He had shorts. He had a red shirt. He had a sweatshirt. He had a hoodie. Everybody's was different. Sure, there was many that were the same. And then at the end, she brought him in and said, this is to prove to you that eyewitness testimony is not the best. Obviously, you're going to get the basis of it. She was robbed. Her purse was taken. But, to get all those little details, they vary.
I've seen several experiments like this.
Yeah.
There was another one where they told 3 different stories that were separate in detail, but kind of told half of one, half of one, half of one. And then people could not separate them. They conflated them completely till it was a complete mess.
Yeah. You remember the game when we played when we were kids called telephone? Everybody.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. How bad was that screwed up?
By the time it got to the last person, it was a completely different story.
Yeah. Now the teacher was supposed to take you through how to become a good witness or to hear the truth. And when I say that word truth, reality is truth. Okay. And so we went further with that in our class, where each of us had to very hard hear exactly what was said, write it down first, and then tell the person what was said. Okay. And that taught you to attend what you heard. Okay. To be ready for it. And then the teacher went even further with us when I was very young and said, you can have things that shock you and come upon you suddenly, and you either attend to it with all of your vision, with all of your focus, okay, or you don't. And if you're busy thinking something else, or you've got a slow channel, or you have the ability, you have learned to change channels constantly in your head and not be able to attend, that's the thing, okay? And as a country, as a world, people are just flashed all the time.
Oh gosh, commercials is a good
crazy.
example.
Oh my God. And they numb us, right? They numb our brain and make us dumb is what I noticed.
I was looking at a commercial.
Technology, this smartphone here, I could remember in the 80s and 90s, I remembered everybody's phone number. Don't you guys remember that? You just remembered it. How many numbers do you actually remember now instead of having to pull out the person's contact and hit call? I think in some way, a lot of this technology is supposed to make
But
it
you can
better,
practice to
and
be
it's dumbed
a
us.
trained observer. Each person can do this pretty easily.
Every day. Yeah.
Not just that, remote viewing too. Isn't
Very
that
much
something huge
that's
would
one
open
of the
up our
first ways
minds?
into using your intuition and your abilities. That's right.
All right. I'm going to pop up a question because we only have a few more minutes.
Sure.
Are there different colors for the tractor beams? Dolly,
Dolly would. Yeah, that's her question.
They're either white or blue. Almost never yellow. If you see yellow, run. It's not ET.
What's red?
Red is a pure face. If they're coming down with red over the top of you, don't worry. Take a deep breath and get ready to just be somewhere else really fast, because they're coming in for a grab. Okay, it's not going to be a slow or give you any time to think about it. You're gone. You're going with it right then.
All right.
That's white, blue, or red. Okay.
All right. Here's one which I really want to pop up because it's interesting. I have a question. Can spending time on the ship alter your electrical field so you absorb more than you disperse? I get shocked on metal worse than other people. Dolly complains about this.
Yeah.
Match fire bends backwards and burns.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, you put yourself in a highly electromagnetic field, and have you ever been in an MRI? One of the weird things about being in an MRI is that it makes every cell in your body stand up straight. Okay. It magnetically charges your physical body to go in one direction, polar direction. Okay. And then they start taking scans of what your body is now becoming a transmitter, and they have a receiver and they read the picture from you. Funny
Ah,
thing about intuition and psychic ability, you're doing that with your brain. Okay. And if you have a lot of time with them and you're in that environment, oh, yeah. And it will last a while. People will do amazing things for quite a small period, like a month, maybe even 2 months. And if you're having regular visitations with ET, it will go through your lifetime. I cannot wear watches. I don't hold my cell phone all the
Most
time.
contactees can't.
I arc electricity off of everything. I have almost no hair on my body. I have very little hair on my head. I mean, it's not
so
much.
does
Yeah.
battery dies quicker near you?
Yes, I suck the life out of every battery I come in contact with. It's better for me not to touch it. And but I have learned to use my abilities to the point that I am generating my own field, and I need electricity for it. And I'll suck the life out of anything to help my field tighten. Okay, that's how
This
that
is
works.
related to healing abilities, to levitation,
Yeah.
to a number of different psychic abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're gonna have to wrap it up, guys. We got like pretty much 1 minute. We can go a few minutes over, but anything else you want to add, John?
Oh,
Dr. J?
if you want me to tell you a quick story about my NDE, I can try to tell it as quick
Oh,
as
I'd love
possible.
to hear about that.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
cool.
Okay, so I had a surgery that went wrong, and I ended up aspirating, which means saliva went into my lungs. I was sleeping from the nausea or the anesthesia afterwards, and my brother, heard me have the death gurgle, called the paramedics, and I was woken up by them. I had an oxygen level of 32. I shouldn't have survived. Got to the hospital. They intubated me immediately and induced me into the coma. When I woke up from the coma, I said I had the craziest dream, and they said you couldn't have, And then I found out later I had, my heart had shut down for I think 13 minutes or something like that. And this was the craziest thing. I knew I was walking on PCH, and I would see, I felt for some reason I just felt like I was in San Pedro. On one side, you could see the apartments, and then you could also see them on the other side. But when I went back to look at the ocean side, the apartments were gone. It was just complete ocean. And this is the best part. The sand was just glowing with light, and the air had an element of light. And every time the wind blew, the light would get brighter. It was crazy. And then there was a docked boat, not even docked, like a beach boat. And it kind of reminded me, kind of like the end of Shawshank Redemption when he goes and meets with Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, I
And
know.
they're working on it was a bigger boat than that, but it was kind of like that. But it had like an indoor structure as well. And there was one person standing up and two people sitting down. I know of the two people sitting down. One was a lady. I don't know what the other was. It could have been two ladies, but they are not the ones that I was paying attention to. It was the one standing up. And for some reason, I just walked onto that boat and said to him, I recognized who he is. I said, "Didn't you die in 1988? And he smiled and said yes. As he smiled and said yes, the wind started blowing so hard. And all of a sudden, like I just got blinded by the most beautiful golden light. And it felt amazing. I could feel love in the light.
Right.
Boom,
Wow.
I'm awake. And I didn't realize then because it felt like 10 minutes, 44 days had passed. So that was my NDE.
That's totally
Amazing.
cool. I like that.
Wow.
That is neato.
Yeah.
We got to talk more about that. You got to come on our show again.
Absolutely.
Okay. Because there's a lot more to talk about. Lots more. And
2
Very
hours
cool.
is never enough. 12 is never enough.
yeah. Yep.
Thanks, John. That was amazing.
Yeah.
You bet.
When we sign off, do not hang up. Stay on because we're going to talk afterwards. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay, wait. Let me just say a quick
I'm
thank
waiting.
you to all you guys who helped out with our show. Namaste. We absolutely appreciate it. Raul, you guys, this helps us so much. Alexander, Amazing.
I love Alexander G. He is so cool. He's my contact in Norway, and he's been one of my greatest supporters lately.
Oh,
Shout out to Alexander G. And the rock star and Nicholas Cashmore.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you
You guys
guys.
are getting so many more super
Wow.
chats than I've ever gotten. I envy you. For
There's
that.
my
Christy,
sister-in-law. Hi, Christy.
I
Yeah,
got
thanks,
maybe
guys.
10%
All
of
of
what
you
you
for
get.
all of you for joining us. What a great fun show this has been. Absolutely.
That's your
I love
sister-in-law, right? That was
Yes.
your sister-in-law.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
Loves you.
Christine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank
God
you,
wants
Nicholas.
Dr. J here. Yep.
Yeah,
We all
he's
do.
the awesome. Hey, I hope your family is doing well and little Claire is doing great. His daughter.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, everyone, thank you for this beautiful Monday night. I'm glad that you all showed up. Please come back next Monday for our next guest. We are coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We're coming to you from Roku. We're coming to you from Facebook, from Rumble, and YouTube. Thank you to our sponsor, Carnation. Thank you for being with us through all of this. We love you. I want you all to go and have a very good week. Learn, have joy. We love you. Mwah. Namaste. Night, night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Great.
Love you all.